Welcome to the online lectures for information security. Within the second unit, within the previous classes, we have studied what are laws, what are the different ethics, what are the relevant US laws, international. In today's class, we will be studying the international laws and legal bodies. Now, these three mentioned here are the different international laws and legal bodies. Let's study this in detail. Now, the international laws and legal bodies. Now, the first one is the European Council Cybercrime Convention. Agreement on Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property. Now, this is abbreviated as TRIPS. Then, Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the DMCA. Now, let's begin with the first one. The first one is the European Council Cybercrime Convention. Now, this Council of European, now who designed this particular model? The Council of Europe. They have drafted the European Council Cybercrime Convention. Now, what is cybercrime? Cybercrimes are the crimes that are launched via the internet. On the internet, what crimes take place that are called as your cybercrimes. So, this Council of Europe, they have drafted this European Council Cybercrime Convention. Now, this was designed so that you can create an international task force. Now, international task force means this can be used within the Europe and outside the Europe also. It is an international task force. Why it is used? To oversee the range of security functions associated with internet activities. That is, if there are different internet activities, even whether you're doing a transaction or you're creating an account somewhere. So what is the security that is associated with the transaction? Or when you're making a login attempt, how is there going to be the security of information? That is going to be seen by the European Council Cybercrime Convention. Now, this is also used, why is this used? To standardize technology laws across international borders. Now, as you studied that there is an international task force, this was designed so that you can standardize all the technology, so that this can be used within Europe and outside the Europe also. Now, this one is the first European Council Cybercrime Convention. Now, this European Council of Cybercrime Convention, it also makes an attempt to improve the effectiveness. Now, already there are already many international task force that are used across the different international borders. So this is, you can also say that this was also an attempt to improve the effectiveness of international investigation. If there is an cybercrime that was conducted at an international level, so this also makes an effective improve so that you can investigate the different cases across. Now, this investigation cases, this can be done for the different technology laws. Now, this convention, it is also now this convention, it is a well-received advocate for the different intellectual properties. Now, what is an intellectual property? Intellectual properties are different ideas are called as your intellectual property. Any idea is called as your intellectual property. So it advocates the intellectual property rights so that you can have an emphasis on the copyright infringement. So no other person is going to copy the same idea as yours. The next one is the Agreement on Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, that is TRIPS. Now, this specific TRIPS, this was created by WTO. Now, what is WTO? WTO is World Trade Organization. So this was the group that formed the TRIPS. Now this TRIPS agreement, it covers 5 different issues. Coming on to the first issue. The first issue is the basic principles of trading system and different international intellectual property agreement should be applied. So whenever you're making any sales purchases, so you need to apply the different basic principles and the different basic principles that are used for trading the system, and also any other international property agreements. Now as you're trading means, you know, there is trading within the country, outside the borders, so you need to apply the basic principles. Apart from that, you also need to apply the different intellectual properties for that particular place for where you're sending. So this is the first one. The second one is how to give adequate protection to intellectual property rights. Now for intellectual property rights, what are the measures that you're taking so that you can safeguard your intellectual property? That is going to be made a list of what are the different schemes that you're using that can be put on track here. Then the next one is how countries should enforce those rights adequately in their own territories. Now when you get to know what are the different rights, or you can say already you've seen the different principles are there are different intellectual property rights that you're applying, so you also need to know how the different countries apply theirs, how they are going to enforce these rights, and how they are implementing within the different territories. This need to be identified. Then how to settle disputes on intellectual properties between the members of the WTO. Now there can be disputes that now there is also a possibility that the same idea can occur to two different persons. Now if there is any dispute that two people are fighting that it is their intellectual property right, so when such type of disputes occur, you need to identify how you're going to resolve these disputes. Then the next one is special transitional arrangements during the period when the new system is being introduced. Now the transitional arrangements in here, when you're launching a particular application or you're making use of information, if there is any transitional arrangement that while you were making the system, some update came within the principles, or you need to apply some different rules and regulations are applied. So you need to get to know if there are any special transitional arrangements when you're making the new system. The next one is the DMCA. The DMCA is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Now you can say that this DMCA, it is like a US version. So that there's a US version of an international effort that is used so that you can reduce the impact of copyright. How you're going to reduce this copyright, you need to identify that. Then the different trademarks that are used and privacy infringement. So DMCA is this, it is a US version so that you can reduce the copyright, the trademarks, privacy infringement, and this all can be done by some technological copyright protection measures. This is done by applying specific protection measures upon the intellectual properties or the different data that a person holds. Now this is the European Union Directive 95/46/EC. This is increased protection of individuals with regard to the processing of personal data. Now there are different certain applications or that are going to collect a person's individual information. So this DMCA, this increases the protection of that particular individual with regard to the processing of personal data, that how they're going to use your personal data. You can see whenever you're updating or whenever you're giving some information, so they're going to ask you whether they can use your information, whether it can be for taking feedback or to give you related suggestions. So this focuses on the protection of the individual with regard to the personal data and limit the free movement of such data so that no one can uh, make use of your information, or you cannot sell or purchase person's information. The next one is the United Nations Charter. Now this United Nations Charter, you can say that to some degree the United Nations Charter provides provision for information security during information warfare. Now what is information warfare? This charter, it is going to provide you with information security. Now we have already studied information security. Now where you're giving this information security, this information is security is given at the time of an information warfare. Now what is information warfare? It is represented as IW. This involves the use of information technology to conduct an offensive operation. The offensive operation, it can be an attack. So you're using the information so that you can conduct an offensive operation as part of organized and lawful military operation to a sovereign state. Now for this, the different attacks that are formed, or you can say that there is jamming of different networks, intercepting when two people are talking, you can capture what they're talking, or you are spoofing enemy communication. What is spoofing? Spoofing, it is also a type of attack where you can disguise yourself as the second person and you can copy the information, or you can even change the messages. So this is what is done by the United Nations Charter. The next topic is ethics and information security. Now there are 10 commandments of computer ethics from the Computer Ethics Institute. Now what are those ethics? The first one is, now this is how it is written within the text. Thou shalt not use a computer to harm other people, or you can say that thou shall can be taken as you shall. You should not use a computer to harm other people. That is, it should not be used for conducting any type of attack or copying of data, anything. This should not be used by making use of the computer. Then the next one is, thou shalt not interfere with other people's computer work. That is, if suppose a person has have their computer logged on and they've just left their place, you should not interfere in other people's work. You should not go through their data. The next one is, thou shalt not snoop around in other people's computer files. Like I've said you the one point that is related to it. Then thou shalt not use a computer to steal. Now using computers to steal, this you like what you do, you can launch a hijacking attack, intercept the OTPs, transfer funds to your accounts. That is the fourth point, or you can say the commandment. Then the fifth one is, thou shalt not use a computer to bear false witnesses. So this all should not be done. Then the next one is sixth one, thou shalt not copy or use proprietary software for which you have not paid. Now this you can say that you've got pirated versions are there. You should not use the pirated versions, because pirated version, that is not authentic ones, as you're not paid for them. The next is, thou shalt not use other people's computer resources without authorization or proper compensation. That is, you should not use other people's resources. Like this, very well understood. You should not may use other people's resources. Like a resource can be a laptop or it can be a computer without authorization. Without authorization means without permission or proper compensation. Then next is, thou shalt not appropriate other people's intellectual output. Now we have, within the previous case we have seen that one person should not steal intellectual properties. The next one is the intellectual output. That is, based upon your idea, you might have implemented a software, so that is your output. You should not even steal that output. The next is, thou should always use a computer in a way that ensures consideration and respect to your fellow humans. So this is, whenever you're using a computer, it should not cause harm to any other person. You should not be snooping in other people's file or copying the data or making use of pirated versions of apps. This should all not be done by while you're working on a computer or a laptop also. So this is all these commandments need to be applied. The next is ethical differences across cultures. Now coming on to the ethical cultures, now you have people of multiple cultures working in a particular company, so there are some ethical differences also across different cultures that you can see that if suppose there is a tradition for one a group of people that they follow some particular thing, whereas if you take that same task, that particular same task might be considered as a bad omen or something like that. So there is a cultural difference between the two different teams. So differences in culture, they can cause different problems in determining what is ethical and what is not ethical. So proper training should be given to people so that they get to know what is legal and what is illegal, or ethical and non-ethical. Then the next one is studies of ethical sensitivity to computer use reveal differential nationalities have different perspective. As I've said within the previous point, that there can be different people belonging to different cultures, or you can say different countries, different areas. So those people, when you just talk to them, you get to know there's a lot of gap between you can say that there's a large difference between what those people think. The next is difficulties arise when one nationality ethics behavior contradicts with the another national group. When there is a contradiction, that one thinks that it is a good thing, the other thinks it is a bad one, then at that time difficulties arise. The next is ethics and education. Now we've seen that ethics with the cultures. Now this ethics is with the education. Now whenever you need to follow ethics, you need to train all the employees so that they get to know what is ethical and what is unethical. They get to know the difference between. Now this is important within the different areas of information security, as many employees, they do not have a formal, as you can see that these many employees across different organizations, they do not have any type of technical training that they get to know what is unethical, or they don't, sometimes they even don't know what is legal also. So you need to give proper ethical and legal training so that all the employees that are working within the organization, they are well informed and they get to know what type of system they're working on, and it also reduces the risk. The next one is deterrence to unethical and illegal behavior. Now what is this deterrence? The definition of deterrence, it is preventing an illegal or unethical activity is called as deterrence. Now for this, what are the different tasks that are used for this deterrence? Those are laws. You can impose some specific laws, policies, or any type of technical controls. That are your examples for deterrence. Now coming on to this deterrence, now you can say that there are three types of penalties for three different conditions. The first one is fear of penalty. Now within this fear of penalty, whenever a particular person is going to violate a policy, or whether he's doing some unethical thing, there should be a fear of penalty. That is, he might be made to pay some amount of money can be paid, or that is for the fear of paying penalty, he might avoid the specific unethical task. Or it can also be, now apart from paying money, there should be also a threat to imprisonment, that if someone does an ethical thing, they might be put into jail. Then the next one is probability of being caught. Now, if you even have the fear of penalty, there is still a possibility that the person might try and attempt to do an unethical task. Now, for this, if there is a fear of being caught, that whenever you're doing this unethical task, so this can also avoid unethical behavior. Like, unless you have a reasonable fear of being caught, you might not avoid it. Then the next one is probability of penalty being imposed. Now, if there are some potential offenders, they might not believe that the penalties are monitored. Now, if we take an example, there are different rules and regulations for for traffic within different countries. Now, for those different countries, you should not exceed the speed limits are there. You should not break the signals, or if you do that, based on that, your points are cancelled. Like, if your points reach some amount of 100, your driving license might be cancelled. So there is the fear of penalty being imposed, and fear of being administered. Because every time when you're breaking the rules, your penalties are administered, that they are kept track of, and if it reaches some specific number, there is a chance of cancellation of your services. The next one is Code of Ethics and Professional Organizations. Now, this is the responsibility of a security professional to act ethically and according to the policies and procedure of the employer. Employer is the person under which that you're working. So it becomes the responsibility of security professionals. Now, for different organizations, you have a team of security professionals that is going to provide security for the entire organizations for different transactions. So for this they need to identify different policies and procedures for the specific employer. Then their professional organization and laws of the society. Now, you're not going to only follow the laws of the employer, you also need to focus upon the law of the society. This needs to be imposed because many times the code of ethics is not enough. This is done because many times the code of ethics is not enough. Now, why this happens? It is not enough because employers, they do not encourage the employees to attend those organizations, because if they attend specific organization, they might want to take some specific leaves or traveling allowance. Some things need to be given by the specific organization, so they do not let their people attend this different programs. So it becomes a responsibility of the security personnel, so that he gets to know the different policies, procedures of different employers and different laws of the society also. The next is now the different major professional organizations within the IT is Association of Computer Machinery, the short form as ACM. Now, this ACM, it is a respected professional society that was established during the 1947, and it is the world's first education and scientific computing society. So this was the First Association Society. Now, this ACM Code of Ethics require members to perform duties in a manner that is befitting the ethical computing profession. That is, each and every member that is working within different organizations, they need to perform their duties. That is, whatever task or work they're doing, they should be going along with the ethical computing profession. That is, what are the ethics they need to be followed. Or you can say the code contains some specific references of how you're going to protect confidentiality, protecting confidentiality of information, causing no harm, or how you're going to protect privacy of others, and respecting the intellectual property. That is, you're not going to steal any ideas. Even if you know that this particular idea was of so and so person, you're not going to take any appreciation that you have done it, or you're not going to steal anyone's work, intellectual properties, and copyrights. So this contains these three things: protection of confidentiality, that is, whatever information that you have given for a particular application or event, this should not be known by any other person. Protecting privacy of others, you need to protect their privacy, and respecting intellectual property rights, as I've given this example for property rights. Now the next one is the International Information System Security Certification Consortium, that is also ISC, the power 2. Now this ISC, it is again a non-profit organization and focuses upon the development and implementation of information security certification and credentials. That is, if there for information security, there are different policies, there are different rules. Now, how you're going to provide security? So it is like there's different set of courses that you need to go through, some set of training that you need to undergo, so that for this particular training they are going to give some certifications or credentials that when you have completed this course you have become something. Like that is handled by ISC Squared. Now this the code focuses on 4 things: protect society, the commonwealth, and the infrastructure. You need to protect these 3 different things and act honorably, honestly, now justly, responsibly, and legally. That's how you need to work. Then provide diligent and competent service to principals. That is, you need to give the best of your services. The next is advance and protect the professions. That is, as you now this security and training, this is done so that you can implement security within the different areas within the organization. So how you're going to protect the different professions, you need to identify this. The next is the SANS, the System Administration Networking and Security Institute. Now this, it is a professional organization. Now this is an extra point. It is a large membership dedicated to protection of information and system. That is, you need to make some payments so that you get to know about the different informations and systems and how you're going to safeguard them. Now this SANS offers a set of certification. Now this the previous one we was studied, the ISC Squared. This also provides certification and credentials, whereas this provides you with certificates that are called as the Global Information Assurance Certification, or the GIAC. That is the acronym for this. That is your certifications. It is accepted worldwide, or you can say it is accepted globally. You don't need to write in detail about all of those different professional organizations. Just these few points are enough. Then the next one is the Information System Audit and Contract and Control Association. this is control association. Now this is a professional association that focuses upon three things, that is auditing, control and security. Now what is auditing? Now auditing is like you're going through all the records, even you've done any transactions, you've made payments, you've purchased, or this all you're checking them is called as your auditing. Or you have done a transaction having all the details there, that is called as your auditing. Then control and security, that is how you, if there is any breach, how you're going to control that. And security measures the different policies, principles that you are implementing. Now this ISACA, this does not focus upon exclusively on information security. That is, it is not only for information security. This is also going to provide some certification information system. Audit is also called as CIS. That is, this is also going to issue some certificates based upon the training that is provided. The ISACA also has a code of ethics for its profession. That is, it is again going to have some different codes of ethics. Now, for this code of ethics, it requires different standards that need to be implemented by all the different organizations and different certification. That is, every organization that is giving certifications, each of them need to follow this. The next is CSI, the Computer Security Institute. Now this provides information and certification to support the computer, networking and information security profession. Now the previous one that we studied focused only upon this part, the information security profession, whereas CSI, it focused upon the computer as well as the network, that is the computer that you're working on, and to the network that it is connected. Now this CSI, it does not promote a single certification certificate like the previous one that you have studied, that CISSP or GISO, but it is going to provide you with extensive training within the different areas of internet security, like the intrusion management system. That is, what is intrusion management? When there is an intruder, that is a person that does not have legal access for accessing the information, he's trying to make an intrusion within your company, that is intrusion management. The network security, that is the network that you're connected on, it is going to provide you with all the security, like the HTTP is converted to HTTPS, that is your network security. Then forensics as well as the different technical networking, that is a technicality that is associated with the networking that needs to be, that is done by the CSI. All the training is given by on the different areas of internet security. Now these are the list of different other security organizations like ISSA, CSD, NIST, CERT, CPSR. So these are the different security organizations. The next is the key US federal agencies. Now this key federal Bureau of Investigation, National Infrastructure Protection Center, that is the NIPC. This is your National Infraguard Program. Then you've got the National Security Agency and the US Secret Services. So these are the key US federal agencies that you can say these ones are the most important federal agencies for the US. The next is the organizational liability and the need for counsel. Now, liability, it is like a responsibility. So liability, it is the legal obligation of any entity. That is any entity, or you can say any organization, they have their liability is legal obligation. That is, this is provided to a person legally. And the need of counsel. Now, this need of counsel, you can say at many organizations, whatever department they are, they hire lawyers or different firms so that they get to know how they're going to secure the organization. And if something unethical happens or there is some dispute among different organizations, there is a need of legal counsel or any type of any counsel. Now, this can be legal counsel or this can be a professional counsel. So these two things are here. Now, liability, extends beyond the legal obligation. That is, some legal obligations are you need to do so and so, whereas this liability, it is going to extend beyond this legal obligation or contract to include liability for a wrongful act. That is when something wrong happens. So what is the legal obligation, that what you need to do professionally, that need to be identified. Then organization increases its liability if it refuses to take strong measure known as this due care. That is, an organization increases its responsibility when they refuse to take strong measures. That is, if they are unable to implement same security, they need to increase the liability. Now that is called as your due care. Now you might have seen this within different series. Then due diligence requires that an organization makes a valid effort to protect others and continuously maintain the level of effort for security. So this is the organization liability and the need of the council. With this, we finish the first part of the second unit. But the next class, we'll be starting with the next chapter.